Welcome back to Getting Creative with, the show where AADL staff get creative with an arbitrarily chosen topic to stay playful and inspired. My name is Ksenia, and with me today are AADL staff members Heidi, Christopher, Aurora, Amanda, and Stephanie. And this week's theme is wires. They can keep something in, a la barbed wire. They can transport electricity over great distances. Being wired, let's see, that can mean you are either bugged for surveillance or you have too much caffeine in your system. So many things. It's utterly ubiquitous. So Heidi, how did you get creative with this idea?
Well, for some reason, my mind immediately went to crochet with wire. And I feel like there is something I saw years ago in maybe Beadwork magazine where there was a vase, and it wasn't made just like with a peyote stitch to assemble, using beads to assemble a vase form. I'm pretty sure they used wire. Not really sure where I had this image come from, but anyhow, I've seen wire baskets, and I suppose chainmail is something that's, I don't know how chainmail is made actually. Maybe it's, anyway, it started to remind me of that. So anyway, this is what I made. I don't know how well you can really see it. I should have something more behind it, but I made a vase form. Fortunately, I have better photos than what you can see here right now. So maybe if I do this, maybe not, you can see it better. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's wire, so it's kind of like see-through, but yeah, I just made this organic vase shape, and I did earlier put some dried flowers in it. I can't really keep that around because of the cats, so they'll just destroy that. So the flowers are still sitting outside, plants and flowers that are dead. But again, I took photos of that, so hopefully we'll get those on here too. So anyhow, I just kind of went for it. Didn't have a pattern, but I've done a lot of amigurumi type of stuff, which is a Japanese technique of crocheting in the round. And so that's what I made. Wow. It's very flexible. And it almost kind of looks like a weird water balloon. I don't know. It's just, I like it's the organic shape. It's kind of like reminiscent of shapes I used to when I did pottery. They would have been a little bit smoother, not so weird and lumpy, but anyway.
You crocheted with wire?
So I crocheted with wire. This is a 28 gauge brass wire.
Okay.
And it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. So I'm excited. I want to do more with this. So yeah.
So you just start the bottom and up, and then decrease your stitch, and
Yeah, it's in the round, so I don't know how well you'd be able to. The camera will focus that, but so you just start with like a loop, and then you start with like 6 stitches in the loop, and then you double the stitches going around and around until you get it wide enough, or increase it, and yeah, and then I just kind of decreased where I felt like it, and there you have it.
Oh.
That's so creative, Heidi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just love how it's all flexible.
Would you do it
make
again?
it like a ball? It's really fun to play with.
Heidi, would you crochet with wire again?
I would, yes.
Would you use the same gauge wire, or would you change that up at all?
It's a great question. From what I've read, you could do maybe a 26 gauge. I think anything else starts to get too thick and it's kind of unwieldy. But yeah, the 28 gauge was worked really well. So I'd like to find other wire, maybe not just brass, but.
So Heidi, when you were looking at gauges, so I have some wire here, but it doesn't say a gauge on it. It says a millimeter.
Okay.
6 or what gauge you had was millimeter wise?
It says 0.41 millimeter.
Okay, that's similar to what I have. I have a 0.46. So.
Yeah, there you go. So pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of wire is it? Is it like jewelry making wire, or did you get it from the hardware store? Or
I got it from the hardware store. Well, actually, I had some in my stash. That was just a brass wire that had come from a hardware store. So yeah, but probably you could get other wire, jewelry wire, Yeah.
I also just love. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, did you find that it was difficult to keep the stitches from popping apart?
No, they stayed together pretty well. It just, they weren't always uniform though. but I mean, this is the first time I've ever done it, right? So I, allowed for that. So some of them are a little bit sloppy. It was because it was hard to like pull the wire tight like you do with fiber to keep your stitches really even. So, but yeah, it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. My fingers, though, being brass wire, they started to get black on the tips.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah, some of the patina, I guess, coming off. I don't know what that is, but yeah.
I love how antithetical a vase is to wire. I just love that you can like squish it, you can throw it on the ground and it won't break. I love it doesn't hold water. It just like is so unvase like for being a vase, and that's just that to me is really just a fun idea.
Yeah.
And cool. I can't wait to see like what the flowers look like in it. Have you like did you just put like regular dried flowers in it, or have you like made arrangements with it, or?
I did like make an arrangement, yeah. So check your email. Yes. There'll be a picture there.
Refer to the photos in the video.
I guess, yeah, basically. So.
Right.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you. Wow.
So is Christopher next?
Yes, he is.
Well,
What did you do with wire?
I was really happy with what I did this week, even though it's not very impressive looking. This goes back to some wallpaper that I really wanted when I was a boy, which was a very colorful series of tubes and test tubes and flasks and crazy liquids boiling. It was so busy. And when we had the chance to do something with wire, I decided to pull out my Posca pens and this circuit board or schematic from the Commodore 64 that I had as a kid. And I just decided to make this colored schematic with all the parts of just one part of the Commodore 64, which is the clock mechanism, which is kind of the heartbeat of the computer. And I had a lot of fun, but I was amazed at how many questions I had to solve just to make this work. First of all, Posca pens smear if you use an eraser, and if you're impatient and don't let them dry. So be patient. Also, I wanted really straight lines for this. And I started out with a piece of blank paper, and that didn't work because I wasn't going to measure every single line with a ruler to get it straight. So I used graph paper, but the graph paper lines are now so heavy it kind of obscures the picture. Anyway, it was fun for me, and I got to practice drawing all my electronic symbols. So that's it.
I'm sorry you never got the wallpaper you wanted. That's so cool.
But Xenia, I got this.
So you mentioned you used Posca pens. What is that?
These are paint pens, I guess. They're expensive, and you shake them. It's like almost a can of spray paint. There's probably a little ball inside, and it's a great feeling to make art with them because it is little bits of paint that comes out. However, it's not necessarily opaque. Sometimes you can still see through it. So anyway, so like if you put down pencil lines and then think that you're going to paint over them and the pencil lines will be gone, they won't be gone. They'll often still be there. I don't know why that is, but that's what I've found. So
Can you layer them like paint?
you can. I smeared them. I had some mistakes on here that I had to correct, and so I used the white marker. But again, if you don't wait for one to dry, you're going to contaminate the marker or the paint tip heads, and then you're going to be smearing it for the rest of the life of that Posca marker or what do we call them? Not markers, paint markers,
Paint
whatever. Paint pens, thanks. Yeah. So a lot of learning.
Mhm.
So outside of the pens, the medium that what was your biggest challenge with achieving that schematic?
I had to draw it so many times and I still ran out of room. So up in the corner here of the original, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I just cheated, thinking that no one would ever catch me. So this is my simplified version because I just ran out of space. And it made me actually appreciate all the work and art and creativity that goes into making something like this. Even though it's some boring engineering thing, it's like, wow, someone really has to think about what they're doing. So I talk a lot. Wow.
I think that's really neat, and I don't think there's anything boring about it. A lot of creativity that goes into that.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. It's like, right, like I said before, wires are so ubiquitous. It's like how many times do we turn on a light switch without really thinking about what goes into the design of embedding a piece of wire into our walls? It blows my mind if I think too hard about it. So thank you for blowing my mind. Very cool. Alrighty. Thank you, Christopher. Aurora, what do you have for us this week?
Well, wires, you could do almost a lot of different things. I thought about something sculpture like Heidi. Then I thought, that's kind of big scale. I wasn't gonna crochet. I always wanted to make a pendant that looked like robin's bird nest. So I did one. So that's my pendant of the robin's egg with the wires. But then after I make one, I kind of said to myself, well, almost everybody could do something like that. So I want to put a challenge to myself. So I made a mobile that is a balance mobile that you see a lot of times they do, wires and try to kind of figure the balance. So I hanged it up above me, so hopefully you can see it. I don't know, but here you go. It's a mobile that I did with the wires and metals, different layers, trying to get a balance into it. So I was trying to configure what's work, and you supposed to start one base, and then you build onto that and make sure it's balanced, and then you build on another layers and stuff like that. So I did different stuff with the wire up there, with the pendants and as well as metals, just so that it gets balanced. And then it was kind of a little tricky because at last point it's got so heavy that I have to put something so heavy to balance out the rest of it. But it's a learning. And it is a challenge, and I thought that would be something fun to do because I never done one before. So
that is so cool. And like I've started so many mobiles before with wire, but the issue I run into is the curvature of the wire, like the crimping that happens. So what kind of wire did you use to maintain the balance without it curving?
Because the wire that you buy usually is not that strong, I end up have to cut some of the hangers, the metal one that comes in the clothing, and that is very hard and very stiff, and it's very hard to bend. I was trying to bend a heart shape and a leaf shapes with it so that it will be kind of add on a design to balance it, the rest of it. And I learned the hard way that it's so hard to bend that thing and so hard to cut it. But other regular wires, it's much softer, but it won't hold the weight. So you have to have something really stiff. Really, I don't know even what gauge it might be, even 6 or much thicker and sticker, and so that holds it. So
Aurora, is the whole thing made out of wire, or do you have a main piece of wood or something at the top?
so it's all metals that I made out of. So someone's gonna hang it to me so I could show it to you. So as you can see, it's all metals.
Oh,
So this is the close hanging wire, but I also add some other wires, decorations, and I also add bead to give it more weight to balance it, so that this way it's kind of balanced out as a mobile. So
I
But-
really like the detail that you've put into that. It's really cool.
yeah, I thought that it'd be nice to add the different kind of. I was learning how to use the wire, making flowers, different shapes. So that's why I thought I add more to it.
Did you follow any like tutorials for shaping the wire, or did you just kind of go for it?
I did look at some. One of them, because I don't have really the equipment, basically just the cutter and the benders. But you just have the different type of wires, and there was one site that someone have done just free-handedly, and the wires and shape. So that's what I follow through. Just kind of give me some idea about the bird nest and the flowers with that. Because you could have professional equipment to help you make something more professional looking, but I was okay with that, being first time. So
Well, it looks amazing. It's really cool. I would have stopped at the bird's nest and been so proud of myself.
well, I thought it's a challenge, so I want to, and I always see them, they hang in the museum and all that balanced one, and some made of metals and some made of different materials. So I thought it's wire, so might as well give it a try.
The patience that it must have taken to accomplish that is amazing. And did you make all the decorations on there, or did you have a few lying around?
I have one laying around, the heart shaped with the crystal, but the other heart, I have pieces of metal already at home. I just have to drill the holes to hang it, because at that point, that is the last one that really needs a lot of weight. So I'm just trying to find things to counterbalance that, the whole piece. So.
Well, thank you. And I'm sorry, Steph, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was going to ask for the bird's nest necklace pendant. What did you use for the eggs in the center?
It's just a bee, different color bees. So
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I always like blue jay. Well, Senya, no, I like nature, so I thought it'd be nice to make something nature to start with and
Yeah.
go on from there.
Well, I think both your projects are amazing. So, good job.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and you can wear one and decorate with the other. It's great.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Amanda, hello.
Hi. So wires, I took it literal and I was like, oh, you have a lot of wire. Let's figure out what we want to do with wire. And then as I was digging through my collection of wires, I thought of the television show The Wire. Don't get too excited that I didn't do it. But I thought of the television show The Wire, which is one of my favorite shows. And I also love to watch it repeatedly every year, like while I'm doing a lot of heavy crafting. I telecraft to it. But the ideas for things that I've wanted to do, I didn't have the right pieces, so I ended up not doing anything related to The Wire. It'll happen at some point in the future. But while I was going through my wires, I was thinking of things that I'd already made with wire. I love making with really heavy wire from the hardware store, the luminaries you see like at the festivals, parades downtown. And I wanted to make one of those and I didn't. And then I went to my collection of jewelry wire, which I have a bunch of for some reason. And I also bought new jewelry making tools earlier during this pandemic. So I was happy to bust those out and to make some jewelry. So I used, I'll show you what I made. I made a necklace I'm gonna hold it up to something so you can see it. And there's not a lot of wire in here, but it's a small piece of wood that's wrapped with embroidery floss and wire, and then the wire is attached to jump rings that's attached to the piece of the necklace or the chain. I have a few different, I picked a really thin wire. I have like thicker, like 20 gauge, I think. I love jewelry making wire because it's so soft and it comes in different colors. Like I've got coppers and brass, and this is an aqua color. But this is just a medium, like a light gold one that I chose because I wanted something I could wrap around the stick many times to make it so that it would stay. And then I just made a little loop on the top, and then I attached the jump rings to the loop of wire, and then I attached 2 separate chains. And again, I was using what I had here, and I have a bunch of different findings and little implements for jewelry, but I didn't quite, normally I wouldn't have these giant jump rings that are silver, but it's what I had in home. And then I have a collection of little twigs, things to make things out of, because I love wrapping sticks into all kinds of things. And this is just a nice thick, I think it's sort of birch. It's really light and smooth, like in color and in like weight. And it's very smooth, so it's good to wrap the embroidery floss around. And this is just regular embroidery floss, and I just went with black and white just to make it kind of neutral. So there we are. That's my necklace. And that's that.
I love it.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
That's such a cool combination of, you know, metal, wood, and wire, you know. It's really neat. I never would have thought about wrapping wood with embroidery floss.
Yeah, I like taking larger pieces and wrapping yarn around it. I have a lot of those in the home. But for this, I had to figure out like how to twist it to make the little, the circle on the top or the loop on the top that I could attach the jump rings to. It's not perfect. I mean, I don't think I wrapped it tight enough either. So yeah, because I didn't want it to come off. But yeah, so that's what I did. I stopped at the bird's nest.
Is it, did you floss, did you glue it or permanently, or is that just wrap around freely and then you could always it or something?
Yeah, so when I began wrapping, as I do with yarn as well, I kind of, I make a little tail and I tuck the tail in, and then I wrap around that beginning tail. And then I'll use a little tiny dot of tacky glue just to get that end piece. And then when I started the black, after I don't remember what color I did first, but when I started the other one, same thing, I tucked the tail. So there is a little piece of, and you can't tell when you're looking at it, but I use a tiny bit just to make it secure. There is probably a way where you could wrap it and fasten it without using glue, but I wasn't in a great challenge to not use glue. So I use a little bit of glue just to keep it secure. And when I wrap sticks with yarn, I do the same thing. I use a little bit of tacky glue just to keep it secure.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I love it. It's like you painted a stick with yarn. I think that's such a cool idea of like, yeah, painting with textiles in a way. That's really neat.
Thanks.
And I'm sorry, I think I missed the word. Is there a clasp on the necklace? Or
yeah, it's got it's just like a chain that I cut in 2 pieces, and then there is a clasp. It's official. It's got a clasp and it's got 2 jump rings to connect to the chain. And the jump rings are too big and the wrong color, but it's what I had in the home. So yeah. And also no one sees the jump rings in the back, usually.
Yeah, exactly. They're hidden.
But I like this length of a necklace. Like this is a good, like a nice little, looks strange with this AADL branded hoodie, but you know. That was this week for me.
That's just, I don't know, it just makes me think it's a really fun memento. You know, if you were at the beach, you have a little piece of driftwood from a trip somewhere, and that's a good way to use it, you know, and hold on to it.
When you're on walks on the beach or just walking around your neighborhood, if you find cool sticks or twigs or small pieces, gather them, because you never know when you're going to need them. So I have a little stash I have a drawer full of wire and jewelry makings. I have a drawer full of sticks. So you never know when you need to wrap a stick with wire or floss or yarn.
That's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you dug through more of your sticks and thought about making another necklace with different colors, or are you going to stop at that one for the time being?
I want to stop at this one for the time being because I don't have enough of the jump rings I would like, even though I'm glad I have new tools. I would like different, and I don't need a lot of new jewelry at the moment. This is not my immediate thing I want to make a lot of, but I do like, and I would like to make more with different color floss. Like the black and white's pretty neutral. I think it'd be fun with colors. But I would like to have some new jump rings to go with it. And I also need chain. Like this is chain from something that was broken. But I would need more chain. I have jewelry making supplies, but not a ton. That's not like my main thing I craft. There's just pieces I don't have. And I know there's really good sources for buying like bulk chain and that kind of thing. It's just not my immediate. Usually my jewelry making is like repairing things that I get that are broken, or I like having the ability to like shorten chains or lengthen chains, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm excited also about that turquoise colored wire that you showed, or that aqua.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Like now I'm going to go shop for a bunch of wire and I'm going to make like striped crocheted vessels.
So it comes in different, this is 20 gauge and they have like usually they're like, I guess they had some darker colors like reds and purples and blues. But I'm a sucker for aqua. And then this is a thinner gauge. This is sort of like a coppery color and it's really smooth. It's so pretty. It's so fun to hold. And then this is the leftover of the gold I was using. Because again, and this is all jewelry making wire and you can get it fairly cheap. It's not super expensive if you buy it like in small things. Like, I don't know for crochet, like how much you would need, or how do you change colors with it?
How did I? Well, I had to use because it came in a pack of 75 foot and I used about a pack and a half. So I did have to join at one point, and I don't exactly remember what I did. I think I joined it just like I would join fiber. I did a similar thing. So, and then just kind of twisted it together and tucked it in.
This kind of wire I actually bought at Joann's, and it's the brand Hildy and Joe is one of the brands they have there, and it's 20 gauge. It's 8 yards of beading wire.
Okay.
And I don't know, it was probably $4 or something. I bought it a while ago.
Cool.
But yeah, I love having craft supplies, just random drawers of things from unfinished projects and then finding new projects to use all the pieces of,
Yeah, I know. Some people call it a pack rat, and it's like, no, it's just a project in waiting.
I might need that.
There you go. Something that hasn't been created yet. I love it. Well, yeah, not only am I inspired now by the jewelry making, I now want to be as organized as you are with your drawers of sticks and wires. That makes me so happy.
You gotta have a glue drawer. Yep.
You have a fabric drawer too, probably, right?
Those are just stacks. Those are, lined up by color in stacks.
Wow.
Don't even get me started.
Awesome. All right, Steph, what have you gotten for us this week?
Okay, so I also decided to crochet with wire.
Awesome.
But I did a different project. So I decided to make a little tiara thingy. So can't really see it too well. But,
oh yeah, that's so cool.
So that's that. I bought this wire here to do the base, and that's a 16 gauge aluminum wire. And then the wire that I actually did the crocheting with is 0.46. It didn't have a gauge on it, but it's, I don't know, this thing. It's very thin, which is why I was wondering how yours was, because so this is like a beading wire. And when I first started, so I was crocheting around this aluminum wire. And I did like the first, I don't know, maybe 6 inches of initial chaining around it. And I lost my tension, like I dropped the hook and it just all popped out.
Oh.
It's just completely popped off, which I've obviously never had happen with fabric, with yarn. So that was pretty surprising. So I had to hold a really tight tension the entire time. Otherwise, I was afraid it was just going to pop apart. So yeah, that's what I made. I want to do a bigger one sometime in the future, but I don't know how to solve it. Maybe doing a thicker wire, because it wants to like flop over.
Mm-hmm.
Something that would stick up a little bit more. But
That's cool. That seems like a similar, like thin, very soft wire that I was using. It's very soft.
Yeah, it is. It's
It is.
very soft.
And I could see that. Yeah, that's cool. I think it's neat that you both did crocheting with wire and that you did something totally different.
I have to say that I can't find, I had one that I started and I don't know where I put it. It's only halfway because then when I bought another bunch of wire, the wires weren't the same color. So then I just started over again. But I feel like the integrity improved at a certain point when I like had more rows. So maybe if you're doing a bigger tiara with more rows, maybe it won't, I don't know, maybe you do need a thicker wire, but I don't know. Like
Yeah.
mine was really floppy at first until I got a few rows of it and I had a structure.
And there's only 3 rows here. I think there's my foundation row and then 2 additional rows. And then I wasn't doing like fabric or yarn heavy. That's not really what it is, but stitches, they were just single crochets, but it's still, this is 30 feet of wire.
Wow.
Um,
That's amazing.
I was surprised at how much it took.
Because if you look at this little pack right here, this is 8 feet. This is of course thicker, so it looks a little bit thicker when I hold it up, but this is 8 feet of wire. 30 feet, that's a lot of wire.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty surprised at how much wire it took.
So Stephanie, did you make the tiara and then feed the base heavier wire through the bottom, or?
No, I took the this thick wire and I made a circle of it, and then I just joined it by twisting it around itself. And then I just crocheted around the base.
Oh, was that hard or just really easy?
It wasn't easy. Yeah, so I had to hold I basically had to hold the loop in one hand, and then I had the thin wire sort of wrapped around, and I was trying to hold tension so it wouldn't snap apart again. And it took some coordination that I didn't know I had.
Right. Wow.
Not the most difficult to wrap it around, but it certainly wasn't the easiest.
Have you crocheted with other alternative materials before, apart from wire, or was this sort of like your first foray into crocheting with a different yarn?
I tried plastic bag crochet when I was in high school, making like a yarn out of recycled grocery bags. And that was fine. It acts much like yarn. The main issue is making the wire, or making the fabric out of the plastic bags is very time consuming. Have you crocheted with anything like this before?
Me or Heidi?
Heidi. Well, because Heidi did her wire.
No, I haven't ever crocheted with wire, so I'm glad I finally did. I had been wanting to in a way. Like it was just kind of, you know, something in the back of the mind. And I guess like I've seen your tiara reminds me that I've seen jewelry, and so it wasn't, I knew when I was doing it, it wasn't like that wild of an option, but it's really fun though. I want to take some like amigurumi actual, like make some little animals maybe, and I don't know.
You can do like robots. It's like Amigurumi meets the Terminator. And you can put Christopher's circuit board situation in there, and you've got a whole being.
Well, yeah, I could make these creatures, and then Christopher could do some coding, and they could like do something. I'm sure
they could show the lightning and thunderstorm.
Yeah, we'll collaborate someday.
That's an Easter egg for our very dedicated viewers.
Oh, and you said it was just a single crochet that you did with the for the crown or the tiara?
Yeah. Yeah, I just did single crochet. I tried to do kind of like loops where I would do like a chain 3 and then connect it back, but it didn't really show up very well. But I couldn't find a pattern for a crochet crown, anything similar to this, so I just had to wing it.
Yeah, I want to see the Google search results for wire crochet pattern tiara.
Yeah. I did a deep dive into Viking Knit before I settled on this, but I just didn't have the materials to do that. But Viking Knit is similar to crochet, but you're kind of crocheting around a dowel and then tightening it up by feeding it through like a gauge to make earrings or necklaces or bracelets. But through that, I found something like this, and I was like, okay, that sounds doable without specialty equipment.
Hey, what size crochet hook did you use?
Oh, I don't remember. It was small.
Okay. Yeah, I think mine was like a 3.5 or something. So, and maybe I could have even gone smaller. I don't know.
I was going to say it's my blue hook, but that's not helpful.
I think mine was blue too, so maybe.
Oh, I have heard though that because you and Amanda were talking about the colored yarn or colored wire. I've heard that crocheting with the colored wire the color can come off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I have heard that.
I was wondering about that too, with like just the warmth of like rubbing it, you know? Yeah.
I still want to try it because they were really pretty purple that I saw.
It's just pretty.
Yeah.
Ooh, slinky. That's fun. Nice. All right. Well, that's a fun segue into what I did. And by that, I mean, I covered up my wire as much as possible because it was so ungainly. And I don't have the skills to crochet, which probably would have helped. But when I was thinking of wires, I thought of scaffolding. Because I've made like, I think I was looking at like hats or something, or like millinery for Halloween. It's not just something that I do, but so I was looking at different like wiring inside of corsets and dresses and hoops and cages and things like that. It's like, oh, cool. I can use this as scaffolding. And I started working it into a Halloween costume, and it turned out that just plain paper mache from a Halloween costume was a lot easier than putting wire into it because it was so large. But I kept on coming back to the idea of wire as scaffolding and skeleton. And I had recently gotten back into just some hand sculpting, not with actual clay because I don't have a kiln or access to one anymore because of, this whole thing. So I found this amazing recipe for paper mache clay on ultimatepapermache.com, I think is the address. But it's this lady who created a recipe with drywall material and paper and glue and flour, and it comes out as this really amazing workable clay, and it dries rock hard. You can't destroy it. It's amazing. And so I used my wire to make a little skeleton of a little rocking horse. And then I just kept wrapping the wire around it. And I stuffed in a little bit of paper in it just to give it some body because I didn't want the clay to be completely solid. I figured it would be too heavy if it dried that way. And also it was always taught to make like a hollow body within sculpture. And I don't think I quite got the recipe right because it's like lumpy, but it was really satisfying to work with. And it really scratched the itch of making something with my hands that was kind of organic and clayish without needing, an oven that went up to 2000 degrees. And so I made this out of the wire and then paper and put the clay around it. And I did a lot of like figure drawing and figure sculpting back in the day. And I just went ahead and made this little lady right here too. Can I show this on YouTube? I don't know. Anyway, it's just a wire skeleton, and this was just wire and some tape around her, some paper masking tape. And the cool thing about this is that I could bend her limbs however way I wanted, whereas with clay, it's a lot more difficult to do. So the wire really gave this a whole lot of body and stability. And it was just really satisfying to do that. And I was happy to find an alternative in my wire craft, an alternative to professional grade clay. So this was just a really satisfying thing to do.
That's really cool. That's so neat. The horse, is it a horse?
Yeah,
it looked very heavy. And then you painted it. Was it just like acrylic paint?
Yep, it was just acrylic paint. I sped up the drying process with a hair dryer, but the clay dried so well. Like there were no weird mushy spots. There's no like molding over. It's not your, second graders paper mache, which is really cool. So to have been able to do something that I, could mix myself for like $5 was great. And acrylic went on just fine. I have some little metallic acrylic paint too for the tail and the dapples, and yeah, dried super well.
So I'm curious, when you're mixing this clay, is it kind of like a slurry and then you have to let it sit out until it dries to be a more workable, dries out so it's more workable?
Yeah, so the beginning portion of it is to soak paper, or as this woman on Ultimate Paper Mache does it, Johnny, I think her name is, toilet paper. But I wasn't about to waste rolls and rolls of toilet paper.
Not these days, no way.
No, not right now. So that you soak, and then I use an immersion blender to mix it all up, and then I strained it. So that was the slurry portion of it. But then the rest of it came together in a pretty solid paste with flour and drywall compound and glue. At that point, it's a really nice, soft, workable kind of just clay. So the slurry part is just the initial sort of softening of the paper.
Okay, yeah, because I remember making paper clay years ago, like clay that could be fired, so it didn't have like the same recipe that you're using. But yeah, I remember because it was just, we had to mix it, and then we'd put it out on plaster bats to dry until then we could have the clay be more dried out to be workable. So I'm just to help make it just for mixing it. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You just mixed it, and as you mixed it, it just became this firm, workable material.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to do a lot of like kneading with it, or?
Yeah, my forearms were very sore. It was very much akin to sort of bread making.
Yep.
The immersion blender definitely helped with the mixing of it, but then it just got to the point where it was way too thick for me to work it, which is what you want. But it was very physical, and I think that's why it was so satisfying. And also I got to hide the very unwieldy wire, because it was like one of those infomercial commercials, like when the woman is like, oh my God, what do you do with all this wire? Like you just like can't handle it. So it was spraying out all over the place. And so Steph, when you said it kind of like came apart on you when you were crocheting, I was like, I had to laugh because that was just me handling it and not making anything. That was really cool to do that.
Exciting.
Yeah. And I'm just really excited that I have like this little medium now to sculpt with. It's so fun.
I can't wait to see the before and after pictures of just the wire skeleton.
Yeah.
And then with all the clay on it.
Yeah, it looked, and I love the different aesthetic, right? Because like I made the wire sculpt, I'm like, oh, this looks cool. It's really sharp and pointy, but it looks cool. And then to put the layers of clay over it, just completely changed the look of it. But I think it's really neat. Alrighty. Well, there you have it. Wires. Oh my goodness, so many cool things.
Yeah.
Thanks again for, making me want to learn how to crochet, because I need to, you have your hobby. But yeah, thank you guys as always. I think next week's is beans. Beans.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, are you thinking coffee?
I'm not signed up for the bean challenge, but you never know. I could make my own independent craft with beans. I'll definitely be making coffee that day.
Of course.
I will tune into the episode for sure.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you as always for being creative and getting creative with the materials and with me, and for keeping me inspired. Look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.